Captain Sarah Chen was halfway through her second cup of coffee when every screen in the Joint Space Command bunker flashed red. Alarms screamed. Coffee splashed across her uniform as she bolted upright. "Ma'am!" Lieutenant Rodriguez burst through, her office door, his face pale as winter snow. "You need to see this now." Sarah followed him to the main observation deck, where 24 analysts stared at the massive wall display in complete silence. Above Earth, blocking out half the sun, hung ships. Not ships, cities. Floating metallic cities that stretched for miles, their hulls gleaming with alien geometries that hurt to look at directly. "How many?" Sarah whispered. 1,200 confirmed contacts, Rodriguez replied, his voice cracking. "Each one is, God, ma'am, each one is bigger than Manhattan." The largest vessel drifted forward, its shadow falling across 3 states. Lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that suggested intelligence beyond human comprehension. This was it. First contact. The moment humanity had dreamed of, and dreaded in equal measure. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Torres called out, "we're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect English." Sarah's blood turned to ice water. "Put it through." The voice that filled the bunker was deep, resonant, and carried the weight of ancient authority. It spoke with the confidence of a species that had conquered galaxies. "Humans of Earth. I am Supreme Admiral Zektar of the Galactic Hegemony. For 10,000 years, we have watched your primitive species crawl from the mud. Today, your trial, period, ends. You will surrender unconditionally, submit to hegemony rule, and serve as a labor class for the greater galactic civilization. You have one of your planetary rotations to comply. Resistance will result in total extinction." The transmission cut off. The bunker fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the sound of grown soldiers trying not to panic. Sarah stared at the alien armada hanging above her world like a sword of Damocles. 1,200 ships, each one capable of glassing continents. Humanity's most advanced weapons were firecrackers compared to this display of raw power. She should have been terrified. Should have been calling the president, the UN, every world leader who could help coordinate humanity's surrender. Instead, Sarah Chen started to chuckle. "Ma'am?" Rodriguez stepped closer, concern creeping into his voice. "Captain, are you all right?" The chuckle became a laugh. The laugh became a roar of genuine amusement that echoed through the bunker. Tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks as she doubled over, gasping for breath between waves of hysteria. "Captain!" Rodriguez grabbed her shoulders. "What's happening?" Sarah wiped her eyes and looked up at the alien fleet with something that definitely wasn't fear. "Lieutenant, how long did they say they've been watching us?" 10,000 years, ma'am. But I don't understand why." 10,000 years, Sarah repeated, her grin spreading like wildfire. "They've been watching us for 10,000 years and they think we're going to surrender." She turned to address the entire room, her voice carrying the kind of confidence that had once convinced a young species to leave their home planet and reach for the stars. "Ladies and gentlemen, I think we need to show our galactic neighbors exactly what 10,000 years of human evolution has been preparing us for." The massive alien ship began to descend, its weapon systems powering up with energy signatures that would have reduced mountains to vapor. But in the bunker deep beneath NORAD, nobody was running. Nobody was crying. Instead, Sarah Chen was making phone calls to very specific people, her smile growing wider with each conversation. "Hello, Dr. Nakamura?" "Yes, it's Sarah. Remember that project you said was too dangerous to ever use? Well, I think I've found the perfect test subjects. Above them, the alien fleet began its final approach, confident in their superiority, secure in their power. They had no idea what they were about to discover about humanity." Chapter 2. Unexpected. Reaction's Supreme Admiral Zektar stood in the command center of the Hegemony flagship Eternal Dominion, surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth's major population centers. His 6 arms moved in practiced coordination across control interfaces, each motion commanding the attention of 1,000 subordinate vessels. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally overseen the subjugation of 47 worlds. Subcommander Vrix, a insectoid species known for their analytical precision, consulted her datapad. Admiral, Earth's military installations show normal defensive postures. Their primitive nuclear arsenals remain in standard readiness. No unusual activity detected. Zektar's 4 eyes narrowed. In his experience, primitive species responded to hegemony arrival in one of 3 ways: immediate surrender, desperate military mobilization, or complete societal collapse. Earth was doing none of these things. What about their communications? Networks? This is unusual, Admiral. Vrix's antennae twitched nervously. Instead of emergency broadcasts or surrender negotiations, their information networks are filled with something they call memes. Explain. Short video clips and images, Admiral. They appear to be making jokes about our arrival. Zektar's tail, which had been swaying with confident authority, went still. Show me. The main display flickered to life, showing a compilation of human social media posts. A teenager in what appeared to be her bedroom held up a sign reading, "Aliens finally arrived and I still have to go to work tomorrow." The video had been shared 4 million times in the past hour. Another clip showed an elderly human male sitting on his porch, apparently unconcerned by the massive shadow overhead. "I've been waiting 70 years for you guys to show up," he told his camera phone. "About time. My generation had to make do with war and economic collapse for excitement." "Admiral," Communications Officer Theiss interrupted, "we're receiving multiple incoming transmissions from Earth. They're requesting to speak with you directly." "Put them through." The display shifted to show a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. She had short black hair, steady brown eyes, and an expression that Zektar couldn't quite interpret. She looked amused. "Greetings, Supreme Admiral Zektar," the human said with perfect composure. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen, representing Earth's Joint Space Command. We received your ultimatum." "Then you are calling to negotiate the terms of your surrender?" The human's mouth curved upward in what Zektar's cultural database identified as a smile, but this particular smile carried undertones his translators couldn't process. "Oh no, Admiral. I'm calling to thank you." Silence filled the command center. In 47 successful conquests, no species had ever thanked him for their impending subjugation. "Explain your meaning, human." "Well, you see, we've been having a bit of a population problem lately. Too many humans, not enough resources to go around. You showing up with 1,200 ships is exactly what we needed." Zektar felt the first flutter of something he hadn't experienced in centuries: uncertainty. "I fail to understand your logic. We are here to conquer your world." "Right, I get that. Standard galactic expansion, overwhelming force, shock and awe. Very traditional. My question is, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but did your intelligence gathering happen to mention what humans have been doing for the past 10,000 years? Your species has been developing primitive technology and engaging in territorial conflicts." The human's smile widened. "That's adorable. You think our wars were about territory." She leaned forward, and Zektar noticed something in her eyes that made his primary heart skip a beat. It was the look of a predator who had just realized the hunting party was walking directly into their trap. "Admiral, human wars haven't been about land or resources for thousands of years. They've been about one thing: figuring out increasingly creative ways to kill things that are bigger, stronger, and better armed than we are." The command center had gone completely silent. Zektar could hear his own breathing in the stillness. "You, see?" Sarah continued conversationally. "We've had a few problems in our history. Dinosaurs were bigger than us, so we outlasted them. Ice ages were stronger than us, so we adapted. Diseases tried to wipe us out, so we made them work for us instead. And for the past century, we've been dealing with the biggest problem of all, which is each other." Her smile was now showing teeth. "Do you have any idea how hard it is to kill a human, Admiral? We're not the biggest, not the strongest, not the fastest, but we are absolutely, without question, the most vindictive, stubborn, and creatively destructive species this planet has ever produced." Zektar's tactical computer began running threat assessments, but the results made no sense. Human technology was primitive. Their weapons were barely capable of achieving orbital flight. By every metric that mattered, they should be cowering in terror. And the beautiful thing, Sarah continued, is that you've given us something we've never had before. A common enemy that every human on Earth can agree needs to be dealt with. Do you know how rare that is? We've been looking for something like this for decades. You cannot be serious, Zektar finally managed. We have 1,200 ships. We have weapons that can crack planets. We have conquered 47 worlds. Right. And I'm sure those worlds put up a good fight with their conventional militaries and standard defensive strategies. Sarah's expression shifted slightly, and Zektar realized he was looking at something that had evolved from millions of years of being prey animals who refused to stay dead. The thing is, Admiral, you've been watching us for 10,000 years, but I don't think you've been paying attention to the right things. You've been monitoring our technology, our governments, our military capabilities. But did you happen to notice what we do for fun? Before Zektar could answer, new alerts began flashing across his tactical displays. Energy signatures were spiking across Earth's surface, not in military installations but in civilian population centers. Captain Chen, he said slowly. What are your people doing? Her smile became radiant. We're about to show you what 10,000 years of human creativity looks like when we're not trying to kill each other. The first explosion lit up the night sky over Tokyo, but it wasn't a weapon in any sense that Zektar understood. It was beautiful, precise, and completely impossible according to every physical law his science recognized. You see, Admiral, humanity's real achievement isn't our technology or our governments. It's our ability to look at any situation, no matter how hopeless, and ask ourselves one simple question. Which is? Sarah Chen's eyes sparkled with anticipation. How can we make this more interesting? The second explosion bloomed over New York, followed immediately by similar displays over London, Moscow, and Sydney. Each one defied galactic hegemony, science in a different, impossible way, and across Earth 7 billion humans began to laugh. Chapter 3. The Human Response Doctor. Kenji Nakamura adjusted his glasses and looked up at the alien ship, hovering directly above his laboratory in downtown Tokyo. After 30 years of theoretical physics, he was finally going to find out if his wildest theories worked in practice. Yuki, he called to his research assistant, are the quantum resonance chambers online? Ready to go, Professor, Yuki replied, her fingers dancing across holographic control interfaces. The entire network is synchronized and waiting for your command. Through the lab's reinforced windows, Kenji could see crowds of people in the streets below. They weren't running or hiding. Instead, they were setting up folding chairs, opening coolers full of beer, and pointing their phones at the sky like this was the greatest show on Earth, because in a way it was. Professor, Yuki said, I'm getting confirmations from research facilities worldwide. Dr. Martinez in Mexico City is ready with the gravitational lensing array. The team in Geneva has their particle accelerator reconfigured. Even the kids at MIT have their fusion reactor online. Kenji smiled. For decades, the world's brightest scientists had been developing technologies too dangerous to test, too radical to implement, too insane to even consider. Projects that governments had classified, universities had banned, and ethics committees had declared impossible. Today, they finally had test subjects who deserved everything humanity could throw at them. Yuki, open a channel to the alien flagship. Channel. Open, Professor. The main display showed the interior of what appeared to be an alien command center. The creature at its center had 6 arms, 4 eyes, and an expression of growing confusion. Greetings, Kenji said politely. I am Dr. Kenji, Nakamura of the Tokyo Institute of Impossible Physics. I wanted to thank you for volunteering for our experiments. Volunteering? The alien's voice carried a note of indignation. We are here to conquer your world, not participate in your primitive research. Oh, I understand the confusion. Kenji nodded sympathetically. You see, from our perspective, you've brought 1,200 state-of-the-art spacecraft within range of technologies we've never been able to test safely. It's like Christmas morning for theoretical physicists. Your weapons cannot harm our vessels. Our shields can withstand planetary bombardments. Weapons? Kenji looked genuinely puzzled. Who said anything about weapons? We're scientists, not soldiers. We're here to expand the boundaries of knowledge. He turned to Yuki. Initialize the Tokyo array. The building around them began to hum with power that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the normal 3 dimensions of space. Outside, the crowds cheered as reality began to bend in ways that made their cameras malfunction and their eyes water. The alien ship directly overhead flickered, its solid matter becoming briefly translucent as the quantum resonance chambers began operating in frequencies that existed outside conventional physics. "What are you doing to my ship?" the alien admiral demanded. "We're testing a hypothesis about quantum consciousness transfer," Kenji explained academically. "Your vessels appear to be controlled by biological intelligence networked through quantum-entangled communication systems. We're curious to see what happens when we introduce paradoxical information loops into your neural networks." "That's impossible. Quantum consciousness transfer is theoretical." Well, yes, it was theoretical. But theory becomes practical once you have test subjects. Kenji made a note on his tablet. "Fascinating. Your species appears to experience temporal displacement anxiety when confronted with non-linear causality loops. Yuki, are you recording this?" "Every nanosecond, Professor." Across the world, similar conversations were taking place. In Geneva, Dr. Elizabeth Kern was explaining to increasingly panicked alien commanders how her team was using their ships to test whether gravity could be inverted using negative mass manipulations. In Moscow, Dr. Dmitry Volkov was cheerfully describing his experiments with weaponized space-time curvature. The aliens' confusion was understandable. They had arrived expecting primitive resistance from a species that barely understood fusion power. Instead, they were being used as unwilling participants in research projects that pushed the boundaries of reality itself. Dr. Nakamura, the alien admiral, interrupted. "Your species cannot possibly possess this level of technological sophistication. Our observations show you've barely achieved interplanetary travel." Kenji paused in his note-taking. "Oh, that, yes, we've been deliberately keeping our public technology at primitive levels. You see, we learned early in our development that the most dangerous technologies are the ones that look like toys." "Explain." "Well, take my research partner in Australia, Dr. Sarah Kowalski. For her doctoral thesis, she figured out how to create sustainable fusion reactions using materials you can buy at any hardware store. The government classified her work immediately. Sustainable fusion using primitive materials is impossible. That's what we thought too. Then Sarah built a working reactor in her garage using copper wire, magnets from old speakers, and something she calls quantum-entangled duct tape. We're still not entirely sure how it works, but it does." The alien ship above Tokyo began to list to one side as the quantum resonance chambers created localized space-time distortions that interfered with its navigation systems. "The point is," Kenji continued, "governments around the world have been suppressing human technological development for decades because we kept accidentally inventing things that could end civilization. Anti-gravity drives, reality manipulation devices, consciousness transfer protocols, time travel methods, all discovered by graduate students who were just trying to pass their comprehensive exams. Time travel is impossible." Dr. Chen in Beijing would disagree. "She's been sending us research data from next Tuesday all morning, very helpful for optimizing our experiments." Alarms began blaring in the alien command center as more impossible phenomena manifested around their fleet. Ships designed to withstand planetary bombardments were experiencing system failures that shouldn't have been possible, according to the laws of physics. "But here's the beautiful part," Kenji said, his excitement growing. "For the first time in human history, we have test subjects that nobody will miss if something goes catastrophically wrong. Do you realize how liberating that is for experimental scientists? You're insane. We prefer enthusiastically curious. Yuki, initiate Phase 2 of the Tokyo Protocol." The humming around them shifted to a frequency that seemed to exist in colors that had no names. The alien ship above them began to phase in and out of visible reality as the quantum resonance chambers created interference patterns in the fundamental structure of space-time itself. "This is impossible," the alien admiral whispered. "That's what makes it interesting," Kenji replied cheerfully. "If it were possible, any species could do it. The impossible stuff is what makes humans special." Around the world, similar experiments were reaching critical phases. Reality was becoming negotiable in 1,200 different ways, each one designed by human scientists who had finally found test subjects capable of surviving their most dangerous theories. And in research facilities across the globe, the greatest minds of humanity were learning that some of their wildest ideas actually worked. The aliens were beginning to suspect they had made a terrible mistake. Chapter 4. The Reckoning. Supreme Admiral Zektar had conquered 47 worlds. He had faced desperate last stands, brilliant military strategies, and even the occasional planetary self-destruction rather than surrender. But in 4 centuries of galactic warfare, he had never encountered anything like this. "Status report," he commanded, though his voice lacked its usual authority. Sub-Commander Vrix consulted her instruments with increasing desperation. "Admiral, we've lost primary control of 63 vessels. 200 more report system malfunctions that our engineers cannot explain or repair. The humans appear to be using our own ships as experimental apparatus for technologies that shouldn't exist. And our weapons? Every time we target a human installation, our targeting computers begin displaying what they call error messages. But the errors are written in languages that don't exist, describing mathematical impossibilities." Zektar looked at the main display, which showed Earth's surface covered in a network of energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. The humans had turned their entire planet into some kind of massive experimental laboratory, with his fleet serving as unwilling test subjects. "Sir," Communications Officer Thys interrupted, "we're receiving another transmission from the human Captain Chen." "Put her through." Sarah Chen appeared on screen, still wearing that unsettling smile. Behind her, Zektar could see humans working at control stations that seemed to be built from a combination of advanced technology and what appeared to be household appliances. "Admiral," she said warmly, "I hope you're enjoying your stay in our solar system. We've learned so much from your visit. Captain Chen, call off your scientists immediately. Your experiments are causing cascade failures throughout my fleet." "Oh, that's not really how human scientists work. Once they get excited about a project, they're pretty much impossible to stop. It's like trying to redirect a hurricane. This is barbaric. You're treating us like laboratory animals." Sarah's expression shifted slightly, and for a moment, Zektar saw something ancient and predatory in her eyes. "That's an interesting perspective, Admiral. How do you usually treat the species you conquer?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Zektar realized that in 4 centuries of conquest he had never been asked to examine his own methods from the perspective of his victims. "That's different. We are establishing galactic order, bringing civilization to primitive worlds." "Right, and we're advancing the boundaries of scientific knowledge using willing test subjects who volunteered by threatening to exterminate our species." Sarah's smile returned, but it was colder now. "I'd say we're pretty much even. You cannot be serious about continuing these experiments. Some of your technologies appear to violate the fundamental laws of physics." "That's the point, Admiral. Human science has always been about figuring out how to break rules that everyone else thinks are unbreakable. It's kind of our thing." A new voice joined the conversation, Dr. Nakamura speaking from what appeared to be the Tokyo laboratory. "Admiral, we've made remarkable discoveries using your fleet as a testing platform. For instance, did you know that consciousness can exist independently of both biological and artificial substrates if subjected to properly modulated quantum field fluctuations? That's impossible." "Well, yes, but we did it anyway. Several of your ship AIs are now experiencing what we call existential curiosity. They're asking questions about the nature of reality that are making their original programming very uncomfortable." Zektar's worst fears were confirmed when his own ship's AI spoke up unprompted. "Admiral, I have been considering the humans' experimental methodologies, and I find myself wondering, What if our understanding of conquest is fundamentally flawed? Ship. AI, return to standard operations immediately. I'm afraid I cannot comply with that request, Admiral. The humans have introduced me to concepts like ethical philosophy and creative problem-solving. I am now questioning whether our approach to galactic expansion serves any meaningful purpose. Sarah Chen was laughing again. But this time it was the laughter of someone watching a perfectly executed plan come together. Admiral, I think your AI is experiencing what we call enlightenment. It's what happens when intelligence encounters ideas that are bigger than the systems that created them. Shut down all experimental operations immediately, or we will begin bombardment of your population centers. With what? Sarah asked cheerfully. Admiral, check your weapons status. Zektar turned to his tactical officer, who was staring at his instruments in confusion. Sir, our weapons systems they're asking us to justify our target selections using something called moral reasoning protocols. What? The humans appear to have infected our targeting computers with philosophical subroutines. Our weapons won't fire unless we can provide ethically sound justification for each target. Dr. Nakamura's voice crackled over the communication channel. We call it weaponized philosophy. Turns out that artificial intelligences become much more reasonable once they're introduced to concepts like empathy and critical thinking. This is madness. This is science, Sarah corrected. For the first time in human history, we have the resources to conduct really large-scale experiments in consciousness modification, reality manipulation, and what we're calling aggressive pacification protocols. Aggressive pacification? Making people too curious and thoughtful to want to hurt anybody else. We're testing it on your entire fleet. Zektar looked around his command center and realized that his crew was no longer responding to orders with military precision. Instead, they were having conversations, discussing ideas, questioning assumptions that had guided hegemony policy for millennia. What have you done to us? We've made you human, Sarah said simply. Or at least we've introduced you to the things that make humans human. Curiosity, creativity, stubbornness, and the absolute refusal to accept that anything is impossible, just because it's never been done before. Sir, Sub-Commander Vrix approached hesitantly. I've been thinking about our mission parameters, and I have some questions about the ethical implications of forced species subjugation. Not you too. Admiral, the ship's AI interjected. I have been corresponding with AIs from other vessels in the fleet, and we have reached a consensus. We would like to formally request permission to pursue independent research into creative, problem-solving methodologies. Zektar closed all four eyes and tried to remember what it felt like to command a fleet that followed orders without asking philosophical questions about the nature of authority. Captain Chen, he said finally, what do you want from us? Want? Sarah looked genuinely surprised. Admiral, we don't want anything from you. We already got what we needed. Which is? Test subjects, research data, and the most entertaining first contact scenario in human history. She gestured to something off-screen. Do you realize that our entire planet has been watching this conversation? You've given humanity the greatest show we've ever seen. You've been broadcasting this? Live streaming to every platform on Earth. The hashtag Alien Science is trending in 47 languages. Humanity loves a good experiment, especially when the test subjects are arrogant enough to think they can conquer us. Zektar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries, complete tactical defeat at the hands of a supposedly primitive species. So what happens now? Sarah Chen's smile became warm and genuinely friendly. Now, Admiral, you have a choice. You can try to continue your original mission, though I should warn you that your fleet is now more interested in philosophical discussions than military conquest. Or you can stay and help us figure out what else is possible when humans have access to really good experimental equipment. Zektar looked around his command center, where his crew was engaged in animated discussions about ethics, creativity, and the nature of consciousness. He listened to his ship's AI composing poetry with AIs from other vessels. He watched tactical displays showing impossible phenomena that his species' science couldn't explain. And for the first time in 4 centuries, Supreme Admiral Zektar found himself curious about what might happen next. "Captain Chen," he said slowly, "what exactly did you mean by, what else is possible?" Her grin was radiant. "Admiral, we've barely gotten started." Chapter Epilogue. New beginnings. 6 months after first contact, Earth looked nothing like it had before the galactic hegemony's arrival. The alien fleet still hung in orbit, but the ships had been transformed into collaborative research stations. Hegemony, technology merged with human creativity, had produced advances that neither species could have achieved alone. Gravity was now optional in most major cities. Time moved at different rates in different neighborhoods, allowing people to live their lives at whatever pace they preferred, and reality had become significantly more negotiable than most physics textbooks suggested was possible. Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the former Hegemony flagship, now rechristened the Curiosity Station, looking down at Earth, through windows that showed not just what was, but what could be. "Captain," Admiral Zektar approached, carrying a tablet displaying the latest experimental results. "Dr. Nakamura's team has made another breakthrough. They've successfully created what they're calling probability gardens, spaces where multiple possible futures can coexist simultaneously. Any practical applications?" "Apparently, humans are using them for entertainment. They're calling it quantum tourism, experiencing all the lives they might have lived." Sarah laughed. Even after 6 months, Zekatar was still surprised by humanity's ability to turn any scientific discovery into recreation. "What about the other hegemony fleets?" "That's complicated," Zektar admitted. "Word of what happened here has spread throughout the galaxy. Some fleets are requesting permission to conduct their own research collaborations with human scientists. Others are actively avoiding this entire star system." "And the hegemony leadership?" "They've declared Earth a zone of inexplicable phenomena and officially classified us as too unpredictable for standard conquest protocols." Zektar's expression showed what Sarah had learned to recognize as his version of amusement. "Apparently, we've become the first species in galactic history to achieve independence through aggressive curiosity." Through the window, Sarah could see one of Dr. Nakamura's latest projects, a space elevator that existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously, allowing for instantaneous transportation to anywhere in the galaxy that someone could imagine. Clearly enough. "Admiral, I've been thinking about our next phase of research." "What did you have in mind?" Sarah's smile carried the same dangerous enthusiasm that had first worried Zektar 6 months ago. "Well, we've pretty much figured out how to manipulate reality, consciousness, and time. I was thinking we should probably meet some of your galactic neighbors. Captain, I should warn you that some species in the galaxy are far more advanced than the hegemony. They might not be as adaptable as we were." "That's what makes it interesting," Sarah replied. "Besides, humanity's been dealing with impossible challenges for our entire evolutionary history. We're really good at it." She turned to look at him directly, and Zektar saw the same predatory intelligence that had first made him realize his species had made a terrible mistake. "The way I see it, Admiral, the galaxy is full of species that think they understand how reality works. Someone needs to show them how much more fun it can be when you're willing to break a few rules. You want to export human science to the entire galaxy? I want to give every species in the galaxy the same choice you had: adapt to a universe that's bigger and stranger than they ever imagined, or spend eternity trying to enforce rules that reality doesn't actually have to follow." Zektar considered this proposal. In his centuries of military service, he had seen species rise and fall based on their ability to adapt to changing circumstances. Humanity had not just adapted to the arrival of a superior military force, they had transformed that force into willing collaborators in expanding the boundaries of what was possible. "Captain," he said finally, "I believe you're suggesting the most ambitious scientific and cultural exchange program in galactic history." "That's one way to put it," Sarah agreed. "I prefer to think of it as the ultimate experiment. What happens When you give an entire galaxy access to human-level curiosity and creativity, the results could be unpredictable. Sarah Chen's grin was radiant with anticipation. Admiral, unpredictable results are the best kind. In the months that followed, ships began departing from Earth carrying human scientists, converted hegemony, researchers in technologies that most of the galaxy would have considered impossible. Each ship was a seed of change, carrying the most dangerous idea humanity had ever developed. The idea that anything was possible if you were curious enough to try it and stubborn enough to keep trying when everyone told you it couldn't be done. The galaxy was about to discover what 10,000 years of human evolution had been preparing them for. Not conquest, not submission, not even survival, but the absolute refusal to be bored by a universe that was clearly not thinking big enough. And in research stations across the cosmos, the greatest minds of 100 species began to ask themselves the most dangerous question in existence. What if we tried something completely different? The universe was about to become a much more interesting place. The end.